We first became interested in miniature art in the summer of 1997 when we received a prospectus for a miniature art show. The physical complications of working so minutely make it a constant challenge for the miniaturist. We are faced with the challenges of trying to hold our hands still enough, make strokes tiny enough, and at times even struggle with trying to see an area we're attempting to paint. We work with between 3x and 6x magnification. The magnifiers in Exquisite Miniatures the exhibition are 10x, so you're actually seeing the paintings bigger than what we do when we paint them. Miniatures are, by design, intimate objects. They don't catch your attention until you step into their little world. If done properly, they should be the gems of the fine art world. Tiny distillations of all the qualities of fine art that captivates and rewards their viewers upon the closest inspection. In today's age, where miniature typically just means small, there are myriads of competitive art forms that are not really miniatures. Historically, and in the minds of the formal miniature art societies, miniature must also include a reduction in scale, a refinement in technique, and it should draw the viewer in and captivate them with more interesting things to see. We're often asked about the brushes that we use to paint our miniatures. Most people tend to think you use a single hair brush. Well, this just isn't true, especially for watercolorists. What we have here are a variety of conventional scale brushes that would, for most painters, still be small. We still use these brushes, not really one like this, but these here and this one here we might use to paint in a background, an area, a wash that needs to be covered very quickly where we're trying to get a solid field of color where it doesn't show water lines. But most of our brushes that we use in painting miniatures are really small, and you can see the comparison here. And when this is wet, it comes to like a needle sharp point. And we will be painting not really like this. Most miniature paintings are done with little stipples. As those brushes wear out, we sometimes still keep using them. You can see this is about as close as we can get to a single hair brush. It is extremely tiny, and it'll only make a couple marks before you're out of paint. And that is probably the biggest challenge that we have in creating miniatures, especially in the winter time when we're dealing with low humidity. The paint that we mix up, being watercolor, dries very quickly. So sometimes, especially when you use a brush this small, the paint will dry before you can even get it from your palette over to the painting. So it's very frustrating. The other problem is, since it's watercolor and we're constantly using water to mix our paints, the more water we put in, it actually changes the value of our paint. Another special tool that we use is a straight edge razor blade. And what we use this for is picking up teeny tiny little specks of dust, or maybe an errant hair from a brush that came out, or one of our eyebrows. You can see I just was laughing there and actually moved this dust over. Well, when we're painting and it's wet, this will actually stick onto our piece of paper. And there's just no way to easily get that off with a paintbrush, so that's where we use a razor blade to just flick that out of the way. Sometimes we'll take the razor blade and just drag it straight across to get off everything we can. While you want your tiny painting to have the qualities of conventional work, you know you have limitations pertaining to composition and detail due to the restrictions in size and scale. We have to selectively choose what to include and what to omit. Typically, we each paint our own paintings by ourselves. Our tandem treasures are paintings that we have both painted. I might do the background and Rachelle the subject, or like with Life Imitates Art, we pass the painting back and forth between us. I'll paint for an hour or so, and then she will paint until we consider it done. Nacapuli Canyon is near San Carlos, Mexico, where we went in 2012 on an expedition with other artists. We enjoyed Nacapuli Canyon so much we went back there several times with the group. If you look really close, you can see a teeny tiny Rachelle in this composition, hence the title. We still participate in conventional or non-miniature exhibitions, and some of our paintings for these shows don't meet the scale guidelines of formal miniature art societies. This is especially true with many of our paintings of amphibians, reptiles, and insects.
I saw this fish camp just outside Weymouth, Mexico, and was amazed at the living conditions of these fishermen. This picturesque scene represents two opposing sides, that of the fishermen, with fishing being the only way of life they have ever known, and the other being the tremendous negative impact they are causing on the environment with overfishing and the use of drift nets. It is one of many paintings Wes and I did from the Sea of Cortez expedition. Rhapsody in Blue was an interesting exploration of light, transparency, and complementary colors. As with my other still lifes, the rich depth of color was achieved through multiple layers of transparent watercolor. Rendering the beautiful soft glow in my still life paintings is very time-consuming and is done by stippling hundreds of tiny marks to visually blend the surrounding areas.
Wildlife coexisting in our altered man-made environment gives us the chance to not only illustrate how they adapt to our environment, but it also affords us the pleasure of painting a greater variety of subjects. Brandts' Cormorants at San Pedro Island is another one of our paintings that we did featuring the Sea of Cortez expedition that we went on in 2012. There's actually 29 birds in this painting. Miniature paintings are unique historically in that they blended fine art and jewelry due to their function, as cherished mementos, being predominantly portraits of loved ones to be worn much like photographs are stored today in a wallet or a phone. I did this self-portrait during the time I was wrapping up the writing and publication of Modern Masters of Miniature Art in America. After 3 years of concentrating on the book project, it was fun to paint them versus read them for a change.
Painting happy memories of life's experiences is such a joy, and this was one of my favorite places to kayak to, where I could swim and hang out with the ducks.
The Tennessee Farmstead is an Amish farm that's located about an hour and a half from us. I really enjoyed painting all the teeny-weeny little details in this, and probably the smallest thing I ever painted is in this painting. If you can look and find it, it's a tiny little Amish farmer all dressed in black with his hands down in a white 5-gallon bucket.
We've always considered ourselves mostly wildlife artists, and they are still our favorite subjects because of the time we get to spend watching them and gathering a reference out in the field.
Our travels have been limited to the United States, Mexico, and Canada. We enjoy visiting zoos and wildlife parks for the opportunity to observe subjects really close. These two yellow-footed rock wallabies seem to be equally enjoying watching the zoo patrons.